Hi, John Graham, HoustonISO9000.com. We're going through ISO 9001-2015, now talking in specific Section 8 operations, and we're drilling down into the different sections, and let's look at 8.4, procurement. Actually, the standard calls them, they don't call them vendors anymore, and they don't call it purchasing. They talk about external providers, and that's anybody you're buying from, and you're buying whatever stuff, products, services, and anything you're going to outsource. And the standard talks back in 8.1 about processes, and don't forget any process that you outsource. Where that usually gets controlled is here in 8.4, procurement, because that's a vendor or an external provider, and you're going to make sure that you vet them properly and control them. Now, the other thing I want to remind you, we talked about Section 8.2, order entry being a gatekeeper. Here's another gatekeeper where people are crossing with information outside of your organization, where people are reaching out and procuring the products and service you need to run your business or your quality management system. Very important. Could be one person doing this, it could be a group doing it, or it could be a distributed function across the company. It doesn't matter as long as it's all controlled. So remember the gatekeeper. Now, if you read on down in the standard, there's a lot of wording there, but in the first section at the end, they talk about what's about 90% of your requirements that auditors are going to look for. And it's number 1 of 3, selecting and evaluating vendors. How high do you have to jump to become one of our vendors? Jokingly. But what criteria must you meet, and we need records of this, what criteria must you meet to be one of our vendors? Now, we can split that up in different levels of importance. We can have raw material vendors, support materials, and then we can have others like services. That's fine to do that. You can do it any way you want. I like to put it in a table because it forces us to lay it all out. Doesn't have to be in a table. That's your choice, optional. You could put in a procedure. Standard doesn't require a procedure. It does require that you define this very clearly of these 3 things: your selection and evaluation criteria, your ongoing monitoring criteria, could be keeping track of on-time delivery, could be scorecards, could be anything you're looking at. Non-conformances, rejects, as long as you're keeping records of it. And then the third thing, reevaluation. It doesn't say you have to do it annually, but a lot of companies like to go through their approved vendor list once per year. And by the way, the standard doesn't require an approved vendor list, but you got to have records. Most people have them in a computer, in a spreadsheet, Excel, or their software such as Oracle, SAP, or whatever. That's fine, but as long as we control that. 3 very important things again: my selection criteria, my ongoing monitoring criteria, and reevaluation and evidence that I'm doing all of that. Auditors are going to look at that very closely. Now, the next thing the standard talks about, let's buy something. I need clear evidence of definition when the information I provide to a vendor. It doesn't say you have to use purchase orders, although they're very popular. You can use emails. You can use a contract or any other method, but the standard says you have to make it very clear and have evidence of exactly what you're asking that vendor to do. If you want something made by a certified welder to a certain certified weld procedure that's approved by American Welding Society or the Canadian Welding Board or whatever, you must spell that out. If you want it made to ANSI specifications, you must spell that out. If you want to tell them we need to come and release that big expensive machine and inspect it before it leaves your factory in Ohio, you must spell that out. I need evidence of that. So I've got all the criteria for selecting, monitoring, and controlling vendors, and clear evidence of doing it over time, and then communicating when I do purchase. And then the last thing, the standard says, how do you know that what you receive is what you asked for? That goes to the third gatekeeper. Remember, the first gatekeeper was order entry, the second was purchasing, this, and the third one is receiving. And we will talk about a fourth one, shipping, later. Those are the 4 main ones. But at receiving, we usually send our purchase orders to them and have them check off. And you can do any degree of inspection you want based on the criticality of the product or service ordered. The standard gives you that leeway. But I have to close that loop somehow and make sure what we asked for is what we got. They don't bring machines and set them on the purchasing manager's desk. They show up somewhere in receiving. Service done differently. The standard says, how do you know? Bottom line, control of all of it.